group of educators at the Noble Network have decided to go public with their desire to form a union. They went public on March 3rd, I think it was March 3rd. They went public on March 3rd with a minority of members of the bargaining unit, so 131 members went public. The unit is potentially up to about 800 members. Normally we build a majority in secret, but because this unit is so large, we knew we weren't being able to keep it a secret. So these educators went public, and their ask is for their employer, Noble Network, to agree to a neutrality agreement. A neutrality agreement is when the employer signs a document saying teachers are free to talk without retaliation. They can meet with union organizers at their place of work or wherever, and they can have these conversations without administration in the room, so that they can make up their mind, right? Administration obviously has the right to spend lots of time with them, talking with them, to give their side of the story. But Noble administration has written a letter saying that they are not neutral in this process, that they oppose a union at Noble Street. And so there are 3 teachers, took one of their personal days off today. At least one of them, this is the second personal day she's taken off to talk to the board. She came to the last meeting, and they're here to let the board know why they think that they deserve a fair, neutral process to talk to their colleagues, for them to make a decision free of interference about whether to have a union at Noble Street.
I'm here today on behalf of my students as a learning specialist. I've quickly learned that my students are both extraordinary and have exceptional needs in my classroom. As this year progressed, I found myself reviewing pieces of ACT data, TSA data, and IA data, which is, as you most may know, as the interims and ACTs testing. As I got to know my students, I didn't realize that most of their learning disabilities impact their ability to memorize and process information, but that they were hard workers and always willing to continue to grow. Students were scoring lower mastery levels on standards that I have taught versus standards that I have never taught. And I'm doing my best to make sense of this data and try to understand, what do my students know and what don't they know? You may be asking, why do I believe we need a union to make a stronger investment in special education at Noble? It's because my experience at Noble has shown that a lot of effort is getting feedback from students, but no one is willing to sit down at the table with teachers, staff, students, and families for students with learning disabilities. I believe that with a union, we can get a collective voice and seat at the table for students with disabilities. We are asking for a fair, neutral process. That means that decision makers with hiring and firing power refrain from interfering with the process of unionizing. By your own accounts, you have teachers organizing against organizing, which should let you know that you can allow teachers to argue the issue among themselves. Once again, I'd just like to take a minute and say that I love my school. I'm a proud member of my community in North Lawndale, and I go to my students' football games and everything like that. I'm asking you, Mr. Milkey, to make a commitment to allowing us to have a fair and neutral process to decide whether we as educators who work most closely with our students can pursue a union and decide if this is what's best for Noble and our students with disabilities.
Why I'm asking you all again to refrain from captive audience meetings where principals get emotional, often cry, principals yelling at teachers in the parking lot, even just a captive audience meeting period. There's an unequal power dynamic in the room when your superior is weighing in on an opinion. And I feel free to argue with Regina about my opinions, but it's much harder for me to come to you, who has authority over my career, and have a real authentic conversation about that kind of thing. Mr. Melke, you came to Pritzker during our advisory period, and so we didn't teach advisory that day. We listened to you, and you said that you didn't know what the 89 million number was coming from. That was one thing you said, and I knew at the time. It's from the 2016 audited financial statements as posted online. It's the total current assets. Obviously, that's just a snapshot of that moment in time. But I spoke up at the meeting because I do. But I didn't actually correct you because there is a little bit of an unequal power dynamic. You've also advised teachers that they can walk away from their colleagues, and this is just this kind of equivocating about teacher retention numbers, financial numbers, does not forge the kind of conversation that healthy organizations need. I also have been scared that I would lose my job when I called HR. I know other people have fear of being fired or issued mulligans, infractions, and I just don't think that kind of fear really fosters a healthy discussion. So that's all.
He's a very depressed kid because he's had a lot of demerits because he does this, he did this the other day because he has allergies, he's asthmatic, so his head was down. They put him out the class. He wrote on his hand one time, they said he was affiliated with a gang. How's it going to be affiliated with a gang and I drop him off and pick him up? That don't make sense. There's a lot of issues at that school. And it needs to stop. And I've gotten emotional. And I don't like this. I'm very sad. He has migraines because he hates the school. That's sad. And he's an honor student. He has a 3.8 GPA. And I've had to pay $140 for the whatever it is that he have to do on Saturday. 6 weeks. I'm sad. This don't make sense. It really don't. It needs to stop, and I'm sad for the teachers. Because if the teachers don't give out these demerits, they lose their jobs. And you have good teachers. Excellent teachers. You have some that don't care. You're going to have that at everybody's school. But the teachers that care, they're not coming back. They're not invited back. That's sad. You guys need to do something about this. Finish.
I see quite a few people in here would have gotten demerits for simply not even looking at me. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Would that be fair to you?
All right.
That's not fair to my student either. You all have been escorted out because, you know what, you're not giving me the eye contact that you know what the teachers will demand. If they want respect, you know what, you have to give the respect to our students too. You know, I can come up and talk to a teacher and I get blown away. That's not fair either. My student came here because you said that, you know what, I have your students back. I don't feel that way. You haven't had my students back. I've had my students back. I don't trust you all anymore, and it's sad because I started off believing in you all. I do not believe in you all anymore. I would not recommend anyone to come to you all school, not ever. And that's sad, because that's a black school in a black neighborhood, and they shouldn't be treated like that. Why? Because of ratings? No. You all started out great. You started out here, now you're here. I'm glad he's out, because none of my other kids would ever come to there again. That's all I have to say.
It was important for me to take another PTO day to be here today so I could continue to fight for a just and stable learning environment for my students. I believe in order for my students to receive a stable education, the issue of teacher retention must be addressed. During this school year, we lost 12 non-admin staff positions. That was just during this academic year and does not account for the teachers that leave at the end of every year. Network-wide, about 1 in 3 teachers leave at the end of every school year. Our students deserve better than this. The best needs of our students are not served by a revolving door of staff members. Our students deserve to know that teachers they know and love will be able to come back next year. In addition to a stable learning environment, our students require a just education, an education that supports the holistic student. We need to help them academically and emotionally. We believe our network needs to adopt restorative justice practices and implement campus-specific SCCs that reflect the unique student profile and history of trauma embedded at our campuses. The strict punitive punishment outlined in the Noble Student Code of Conduct is extremely demoralizing to our students. In the 2016-2017 school year, Hansberry suspended students over 500 times. There were 3,000 incidents of students being removed from the classroom due to behavior. In 2006, Hansberry also collected $53,000 in fee related to promotion requirements for either academics or behaviors. These consequences push out the students' population that requires our support and need the most. These consequences also disproportionately affect our young black male student, which is evident by our current 12th grade class at Hansberry only being 30% male. I want to continue to work at Hansberry because I love our students and I love this work. I believe every child in the city of Chicago deserves a phenomenal education. an education that not only increases test scores, but provides them with a just and learning stable environment. I believe that this can only be accomplished with a collective voice for our teachers. Okay. You've stated before that you respect our right to organize, and that you also know that there are staff members who do support a union and do not support a union, which is why we're asking the board and the network to remain neutral and allow us, the teachers, to decide about our right to unionize. If you trust us as professionals, which I believe you do, I want you to let us make the decision to unionize without interference like captive audience members or increased surveillance through teachers' audits that are meant to intimidate us. So, we are asking today if you will make a commitment to sit down with us, the Union of Noble Educators, to negotiate a fair and neutral process with protocols that assure staff can make a decision without fear or intimidation. And so I will be reporting back to them that your plan is to continue to interfere with this process and to continue to use intimidation, so we're not allowed to use our voice, and that's your plan going in for the next school year. I know that we are committed to this fight and that we will not stop this fight, so we'll see you at Network PD, and the rest of the board, I'm sure we will be seeing you again shortly. Thank you. Woo!
So one of our UNE members asked Michael Milkey if he would sit down with them to negotiate a fair and neutral process for them to come to an agreement on a neutrality agreement, so that teachers could have conversations about forming a union without interference from administration. And he said the only response I can give you is to look at my letter of March 3rd, in which he said we are not neutral. Union is bad fit for Noble, so he's come out as actively against worker rights. The March 3rd letter signifies that Michael Milkey is actively against his employees exercising their federal right to form a union.